Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. All glories to our revered speaker for today, Her Grace, Sri Shakti, CITI-SAKTI Devi, and all glories to the Assembly of Vaishnava devotees. Today is a very special day in the lives of devotees. Today is the special appearance day of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the most magnificent incarnation of the Lord. Personally, I prefer not to say that Lord Chaitanya is an incarnation of the Lord. I prefer to say it is the most magnificent form of the Lord. And we have an able individual to help us pretty much understand and appreciate this particular form of the Lord. And Mother CITI-SAKTI, now we may give the ball to you, and then you play it as you see it fit. Devotees, we encourage each and every one to be very attentive. We know devotees are fasting, and sometimes when we fast, we get a little distracted. But we hope that we can be more focused and keep the mind in one place. So, Hare Krishna, Mother CITI-SAKTI, you may take it.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Happy GAURA PURNIMA to everybody. And I hope your festivities and your vrats and your fasting are going well. Yes, as Sahadev Prabhu has said, it can be difficult to hear, especially as the day goes on. But moonrise isn't far off. I think it's only about 2 to 3 hours to go, depending on which part of Africa you're in. And in the UK, I think we've got about 2.5 hours to go. So we're nearly there. And I pray that the festivities that you're having are nourishing and provide an easy distraction from hunger pangs. So let's start with Mangalarchanam. I'm not qualified to speak about this most munificent, magnanimous, kind, generous, loving form and face of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but I will try my best based on the teachings of His Divine Grace. So please join me with Mangalarchanam so we can evoke the blessings of the Acharyas. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I thought on today's festival day, normally on festival days of a particular incarnation or avatar or manifestation of the Lord or sadhus and saints, we generally tend to describe pastimes of that person. Because pastimes are often a way to gain some insight into the nature of personality, to understand them better. But Lord Chaitanya's magnanimity, his generosity, this most merciful face of the Lord, this most merciful form of Krishna and Radharani combined, his potency is so hidden. It's hidden in plain sight. He's obvious, accessible, and easy to see. At the same time, he's completely difficult and impossible to understand in this form, because in this form, his kindness is uncomparable and unmatched by anything or anyone in material creation or spiritual creation. So I'm actually going to go the other way around and actually look at Tattva first, because actually for all his availability, I feel like Lord Chaitanya is so underappreciated and under-recognized and misunderstood. And I'm not even just talking about people outside of ISKCON. I'm also talking about us as bhaktas, as bhaktins, as devotees, as Vaishnavas trying to surrender to Krishna. We often minimize Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda and often wait until the festival day to celebrate Lord Chaitanya, really not really fully understanding or even attempting so much to appreciate who he's here, who he is, why he came, why Krishna manifested as this most beautiful golden complexion form, why Krishna came as a devotee. Why did Radharani and Krishna combine? Is he even predicted in Shastra? Why is it that the rest of the world doesn't know about him? Why? So I want to really look at all of these whys, understand and establish why we should with great confidence adore and glorify Lord Chaitanya every day, not just on GAURA PURNIMA, and how it's impossible to approach or be successful in spiritual life without connecting with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The reason I say so confidently that we underappreciate Gauranga Mahaprabhu, even though we do, everything we do is based on Lord Chaitanya's teachings, everything internally, externally is based on it. And the reason I say we underappreciate is, time and time again, when I go to Vrindavan, and we have Srila Prabhupada, we have Gaura, Krishna Balaram, you have Srimati Radharani, and Shyam Sundar. Year after year, decade after decade, one thing that's remained consistent from the early days when the temple didn't have so many visitors to now where 365 days a year, Krishna Balaram temple is packed. The smallest proportion of devotees are still congregated in front of Gaura. People pay obeisances, if that, and then move on straight to Krishna Balaram. Very few people. If you want full darshan and really gaze at the beautiful form of the Lord, guaranteed if you stand in front of Gaura, you will get a sweet spot. If you go to Krishna Balaram, and especially Radha Shyam Sundar, you're going to be, caught up in the hustle and bustle. And it just made me wonder that it doesn't matter how many devotees join, the proportion of devotees who appreciate Gaura, who appreciate Lord Chaitanya, who appreciate Lord Nityananda, seems to stay a very small proportion of the overall crowd. And so this is why I felt compelled today to move away from what I usually do, which is to share pastimes, and actually really dive into, okay, what is so special about Lord Chaitanya that really we should celebrate Lord Chaitanya every single day? Why is it that everything we do internally and externally is given to us by Lord Chaitanya, you know? So I want to first of all break down, Srila Prabhupada in the introduction to Chaitanya Charitamrita breaks down the meaning of the title of this most magnificent thesis on the Lord that Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami writes. And he says that Chaitanya Charitamrita means the character of the living force in immortality. The character of the living force in immortality. And he explains that, we understand how the living force operates in mortality, right? There's birth, death, disease, old age, but we never see, whilst we're living here, we don't understand or comprehend what it is like to be immortal, because immortality cannot manifest in the human experience. It can't. Even as a doctor, I know, well, we measure morbidity and mortality rates. We never measure immortality rates. We have to talk about mortality and morbidity. How sick are people and how long are they living for, right? This is how we assess the severity of a disease. How sick does it make you and how likely is it to make you leave your body? And so Srila Prabhupada says, Chaitanya Charitamrita is really a thesis in helping us to understand the character of our living force when we are in immortality, living in immortality. And he explains that Lord Chaitanya himself, the only person who can teach us how or what our nature is, what is the nature of the living force, the characteristics of the living force when we are not bound by mortality and morbidity, but what is our nature when we are in our immortality, is the source of immortality, is Krishna himself. And so he comes himself as a devotee to teach us, much like, and the analogy that Srila Prabhupada gives is really beautiful. He says sometimes when the teacher is teaching the student how to write the alphabet, they take the pen from the student, they get the piece of paper, and they show the student, this is how you write A, this is how you write B, C, D, E. And in this one, we've all been, so many of us have been taught in this way, right? You remember, you think back to your childhood, you remember, you see this visual, because you see a visual and you see somebody who's mastered the alphabet, write the alphabet in front of you, it leaves an impression where you can follow in their footsteps. You know exactly how to do it, how to hold the pen, how the letters look once that pen has hit the paper. So Lord Chaitanya is here to show us the character of the living force in immortality. How do we remain uncontaminated in this world? How do we live in this world with the mentality that I'm not of this world? Rupa Goswami, this verse that we, when we're offering our prasadam, it's Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gore Tvise Namaha. How often do we stop to think about the translation? Often in devotional life, we learn these prayers, and in the beginning when we're learning the prayers, we learn the translation, or we read the translation, we're like, wow, that's so deep, that's so nice. A year later, 10 years later, 20 years later, do we meditate on the meaning? Or are we sitting there chanting the mantra 3 times as quickly as possible so that the offering is done and we can eat? But the translation to this is, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who is more magnanimous than any other avatar, even Krishna himself. He's more magnanimous than Krishna himself. Our goal is to love Krishna, but Lord Chaitanya is more magnanimous than Krishna himself because he's bestowing freely what no one else has ever given. No one, not a few other people have only given. No one else has ever given. Pure love of Krishna. Pure love of Krishna. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, actually, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami really reveals what the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita is going to be about in just the first few verses. Just the first few verses. And then he uses the first few chapters to just explain the first few verses. And he opens this thesis with, hang on, before we go into the pastimes of this magnanimous personality who is hidden in plain sight, you can't really understand him. Actually, even though he's so magnanimous that he's more covered Krishna and Radha than even Krishna is, because one can really not understand him without his mercy. And there's this verse I want to really just, this verse establishes for those who have doubts or may want to pluck a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is universally accepted as an authority, as the cream of the Vedanta Sutra, okay, the cream commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And Vedanta means the conclusion or end of the Vedas. So if you don't read the Vedas, which most people don't have access to, you have the Vedanta Sutra. If you don't read the Vedanta Sutra, you must read the Srimad Bhagavatam, because it gives you the cream, the essence. So it's the most widely revered and accepted Shastra from the Vedic teachings that every school accepts, okay? Every school accepts. And a verse from that, which is also then given in the 3rd chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I want to share this because it's from the 11th canto, and it firmly establishes shastrically that, yes, Krishna does come in this golden form. It's not just some sentiment of the Hare Krishna movement that some saint was born 500 years ago and we've accepted him as God, because we were misled by some magical tricks, or, because he has a lot of followers who've proclaimed that he's God. No, he's firmly established in Shastra. So I want to share my screen and share this verse because it is so important for us not to just be Krishna confident, but to be Lord Chaitanya confident, to proudly proclaim that, yes, we are followers of Lord Chaitanya. I was really touched. One of my cousins told me that when he was going to school in India, I don't know what school he went to, but I've never heard of this from anywhere else. My general impression is most Indians don't know about Lord Chaitanya. But when I started telling him about Lord Chaitanya, this was like when I first joined the movement, I was explaining Lord Chaitanya to him like as if he's never heard of him. But he seemed to know so much about him. And I said, how do you know about Lord Chaitanya? And he said, oh, because in my school, they taught us the whole history of Lord Chaitanya. I was like, wow, that's amazing. So rad. Never come across anybody. I mean, now he's more widely spoken about. But I want to share this verse. I'm going to just share my screen. So this is from the Adi Lila, 3rd chapter, 52nd verse, but it's also actually originally from the 11th canto, 5th chapter, verse 32, where Narad Muni is kind of concluding his teachings. Krishna Varnam, Dvisha Krishnam, Sangopangastra Parshadam, Yagne Sankirtana Prayer, Yajantihi Sumedasaha. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. Srila Prabhupada's purport. This text is from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.32. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained this verse in his commentary on the Bhagavatam known as Kram Sandarbha, wherein he says that Lord Krishna also appears with a golden complexion. That golden Lord Krishna is Lord Chaitanya, who is worshipped by intelligent men in this age. That is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam by Garga Muni, who said that although the child Krishna was blackish, he also appears in 3 other colors, red, white, and yellow. He exhibited his white and red complexions in the Satya and Treta ages respectively. He did not exhibit the remaining color, yellow gold, until he appeared as Lord Chaitanya, who is known as GAURA Hari. Sri Jiva Goswami explains that Krishna Varnam means Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Krishna Varna and Krishna Chaitanya are equivalent. The name Krishna appears with both Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya Krishna. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he always engages in describing Krishna and thus enjoys transcendental bliss by chanting and remembering his name and form. Lord Krishna himself appears as Lord Chaitanya to preach the highest gospel. Lord Chaitanya always chants the holy name of Krishna and describes it also. And because he is Krishna himself, whoever meets him will automatically chant the holy name of Krishna and later describe it to others. He injects one with transcendental Krishna consciousness, which merges the chanter in transcendental bliss. In all respects, therefore, he appears before everyone as Krishna, either by personality or by sound. Simply by seeing Lord Chaitanya, one at once remembers Lord Krishna. One may therefore accept him as Vishnu Tattva. In other words, Lord Chaitanya is Lord Krishna himself. Sango Pangastra Parshadam further indicates that Lord Chaitanya is Lord Krishna. His body is always decorated with ornaments of sandalwood and with sandalwood paste. By his super excellent beauty, he subdues all the people of the age. In other descents, the Lord sometimes used weapons to defeat the demoniac, but in this age, the Lord subdues them with his all-attractive figure as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that his beauty is his astra, or weapon, to subdue the demons. Because he is all-attractive, it is to be understood that all the demigods lived with him as his companions. His acts were uncommon and his associates wonderful. When he propagated the Sankirtan movement, he attracted many great scholars and acharyas, especially in Bengal and Orissa. Lord Chaitanya is always accompanied by his best associates, Lord Nityananda, Advaita, Gadadhar, and Srivas. Srila Jiva Goswami cites a verse from the Vedic literature which says that there is no necessity of performing sacrificial demonstrations or ceremonial functions. He comments that instead of engaging in such external pompous exhibitions, all people, regardless of caste, color, or creed, can assemble together and chant Hare Krishna to worship Lord Chaitanya. Krishna Varnam Dvisha Krishnam indicates that prominence should be given to the name of Krishna. Lord Chaitanya taught Krishna consciousness and chanted the name of Krishna. Therefore, to worship Lord Chaitanya, everyone should together chant the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. To propagate worship in churches, temples, or mosques is not possible because people have lost interest in that. But anywhere and everywhere, people can chant Hare Krishna. Thus, worshipping Lord Chaitanya, they can perform the highest activity and fulfill the highest religious purpose of satisfying the Supreme Lord. Srila Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, a famous disciple of Lord Chaitanya, said, "The principle of transcendental devotional service having been lost, Sri Krishna Chaitanya has appeared in order to deliver again the process of devotion. He is so kind that he is distributing love of Krishna. Everyone should be attracted more and more to his lotus feet, as hummingbees are attracted to a lotus flower." Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. One of the powerful points that Srila Prabhupada makes about Lord Chaitanya's teachings is that they begin from surrender to Krishna. Bhagavad Gita ends with surrender to Krishna. Krishna gives Arjun Karmakanda, Karma Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Jnana Yoga first, before he even opens the door to bhakti. And he gives the essence of bhakti, which is abandon all varieties of religion and surrender to me. Don't fear, I'll protect you from all sinful reactions. But Chaitanya Charitamrita, or Lord Chaitanya's teachings, this understanding the character of the living force in immortality, to understand the character of the living force in immortality actually begins with love of God, with full surrender. So Srila Prabhupada describes the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the life and times of Lord Chaitanya, and his instructions as the postgraduate study of spiritual life. Not all spiritual life is the same. Not all spiritual teachings are the same, and not all spiritual teachings or teachers get you to the same destination. We understand that Lord Chaitanya has, Krishna, whenever he does anything, he has external reasons, which are secondary, and he has internal reasons, which are primary. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we understand, first of all, why? Why does Krishna decide to come as a devotee? Why does he want to give love of God so freely? And not just love of God, but the highest form of love of God. This spontaneous loving attraction that is transcendental and supersedes the Vedic hymns, the yagyas, the meditation, the complex postures and breathing. Why? Why does he want to do that? On one level, he's invited to Advaita Acharya. Before the Lord comes, he always sends his elders, right? Sends his parents, sends his energies. So Advaita Acharya, seeing that despite the advent of Lord Krishna, just 4,500 years before that, the world was disconnected, forgotten, misunderstood. The beautiful blue boy wasn't surrendering. And he was crying and praying to his Shila, offering tulsi leaves, begging the Lord, please, there's no one who can give love for you except you. Can you please come? So on this full moon night of GAURA PURNIMA, beautiful Gaura Sundar appears to inaugurate the only time in the day of Brahma when spontaneous loving attraction to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is given freely. The highest thing is given most liberally. The two don't go hand in hand. In this world, when is the highest thing given most liberally? Actually, never. It really never is. Okay? Not liberally. Maybe out of some act of mercy, the highest thing might be given to someone or a couple of people liberally, but not to anybody and everybody. It's contradictory. If you told someone I've got the most expensive thing, but I want to give it away for free, people will laugh at you. They'll think you need to go to, a psychiatric unit. Have you lost your mind? Do you know how much that's worth? Why are you giving it away? So he appears to give the highest thing in the most unrestricted way. No temple required, no mosque required, no church required, no rules or regulations required. You can know and love God on a first name basis. Here you go. Who are you? You don't need to be anyone. Just have it. This verse describes it. Prabhupada gives it to us in this purport, that just by calling the name Chaitanya, looking at Chaitanya, even if you don't know who he is, just love of God will be awakened. Why? Because he's giving it away freely. And why is he giving it away freely? And this is where the internal reasons that are explained are so powerful. There are three aspects to the internal reason, okay? And I'm going to use the words that are given in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Krishna is the personification of love. He is the love of God. He is the defeater of Cupid. The love that Lord Chaitanya has come to give us is not just for the first time ever loving God so much that you forget he's God. Loving God so much that he looks to you to protect him as his friend or his parent or his servant. But giving love of God of a type, this conjugal rasa, where even Krishna feels like I've got nothing left to give you. Naparayaham. I can never repay you. I've given you all my assets. What more is there left to give? Where the devotee's devotion is so high that even the bestower of that devotion feels like they're pale in comparison. And the personification of that devotion is Srimati Radharani. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami tells us that the internal and external reasons of why Lord Chaitanya came are understood to us because they are from the diaries of Swarup Damodar. Swarup Damodar is Lord Chaitanya's secretary, and also CITI-SAKTI. CITI-SAKTI is Srimati Radharani's right-hand woman. So she knows the mind and heart of Srimati Radharani. So who better to know the internal and external reasons for the appearance of Sri Chaitanya? Sri Chaitanya is the combination of Radha and Krishna. Krishna wanted to experience three aspects. There were three aspects to his internal reason for manifesting and appearing as Lord Chaitanya. Krishna in the complexion of Srimati Radharani. Krishna with some of the features of Radharani. Golden, lotus-like eyes, and a sesame flower-like nose. This is the description of Lord Chaitanya. And as we've just heard, wearing sandalwood jewelry and sandalwood paste. These are his ornaments as he cries out the Lord's name. So these three things is that he wanted to experience the position of Srimati Radharani as the prime reciprocator to Krishna's love, as the prime reciprocator of Krishna's love. He wanted to experience the bliss that Srimati Radharani experiences because her bliss is higher than his. Her bliss in experiencing his love is higher than his experience of giving that love. And the third thing that Swarup Damodar tells us is that he wants to experience the mentality of Srimati Radharani, which really underpins the bliss and the prime position. It's mentality of Radharani that through which he can experience his own sweetness. He doesn't know what it's like to experience himself. Now, these sound very esoteric and lofty and beyond our grasp. But essentially, what Lord Chaitanya came to give us is that the primary characteristic of the living force in immortality is to be completely and madly immersed and in love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the only way he can teach us this is to become this. And the only way he can become this is if Krishna merges with his pleasure potency. So there are no words that I can really share that can help our intellect or our mind to grasp the impossible possibility of a personality like Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya's associates, they give the teachings in the most accessible way, freely, with little or none rules and regulations, with no reaction to offending them, with no weapons to kill the demons, but only love to transform them. We can't comprehend that because nobody else has ever done that. Yes, we hear about Lord Ram. We even hear about Krishna chopping off heads, breaking beaks, bifurcating, throttling, doing all sorts of things to the demons. There's not a single act of violence that Lord Chaitanya or his associates ever engage in to change someone's heart. Everything we have today, the way we dress, the way we speak, the way we understand spiritual life, the way we live day to day, the attitudes we try to live by and breathe, the way we try to embody this characteristic of divine love in our lives, all based on Lord Chaitanya's teachings. Srila Rupa Goswami tells us that to live in this world with this true character of the living force and immortality, but not of this world, remembering that we're not of this world, one simply has to make it their ambition to serve Krishna by using everything we have. It doesn't even say you have to be successful. It's just you have to make it your ambition to serve Krishna with everything you have. You know where this comes from? From Lord Chaitanya. He spent 10 days, more than 10 days, teaching Rupa Goswami, who is Rupa Manjari, the assistant of CITI-SAKTI, on the mellows of devotional service. And he gives us this nutshell, this nugget. If you can make it your ambition to serve Krishna by using everything you have, while simultaneously just calling his name, then you will live in the character of the living force when it's in immortality. You will be an immortal body that experiences morbidity, but you will live like you are immortal, completely saturated and driven by love. And where there is love, there is no fear. The most fearless person is the person whose heart is saturated with love. This is what Lord Chaitanya gave us. Everything we do. So every time you put on your tilak, every time you wear a chadar, every time we chant the holy name, every time we remember, oh gosh, I'm not qualified for this. How have I been allowed to do this? I have the highest thing and I got it for free? Because of Lord Chaitanya. And don't forget Lord Chaitanya. We say Lord Chaitanya's name, say Nityananda's name every day, multiple times before we chant the Mahamantra. Why is after the Guru's pranam, after Srila Prabhupada's pranam, why is the entry mantra into the Mahamantra? Why is the entry mantra Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda? A list of names. It's a list of names. Is the most simplest mantra, is a list of names, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and all of his associates, all in their most magnanimous form. If you look at Lord Nityananda, Balaram in his most magnanimous form, Gadadhar, Ladini Shakti in the most magnanimous form, Advaita Acharya, Mahavishnu in the most magnanimous form. Every single associate of Lord Chaitanya carries this same mood, even to the point where they serve each other by reminding each other why they've come and in what mood they've come. When Jagai and Madai, when Madai attacks Nityananda and hits him on the head and makes him bleed, Lord Chaitanya loses his mind in the protection of his dear beloved and forgets himself. He forgets his magnanimous nature. He comes with his Sudarshan Chakra, but Lord Nityananda lovingly falls at his feet and says, remember, no weapons this time. No weapons this time. Only the weapon of love. So unconditional love doesn't need to be a statement. It's the two words don't even need to be said because love is a spiritual force. It's unconditional by nature. And why do we understand this? Because Krishna and Radharani took the time out to come and lovingly make themselves and love for them freely available, even though we have no interest, we have no attraction. But by this simple chanting, by actually having faith in Lord Chaitanya, what does faith mean? Faith means I sincerely accept you. I sincerely accept you. as the most loving face, the most loving representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I have full faith that I can forget everything else, but if I don't forget you, my life will be successful. This is surrender. And it comes bit by bit. I was hearing in class this morning by Shanaka Rishi Prabhu that surrender is a process. It doesn't happen all of a sudden. And year after year, decade after decade, we should see a change in our heart. We should see, and we should acknowledge, because the process works even when it's not perfectly executed, the process works. Why does the process work, even though not perfectly executed? Because of Lord Chaitanya, because he said, I don't accept any offense. There's nothing to punish. There's nothing to admonish. Because Gauranga Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda have said, I'll take whatever you offer, even if imperfectly offered. And so he was reflecting like this in class this morning, that even when it's not perfectly executed, because of this clause we've got, that there's no offense, no reaction to the offense. This, I came back from Mayapur a few weeks ago, and it's a land where you're doing devotional service even while you're sleeping. Wow. Wow. So if you find that the only time you appreciate or connect with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is on GAURA PURNIMA, my invitation, and it's something that I want to do more of, is to really appreciate by connecting, by being more present when I chant the Panchatattva mantra, when I stand before Gorinthai, when my mind and heart try to get ahead and go, let's understand Krishna. Hang on a minute. Let me understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Let me see how to serve him. Let me see how to serve Lord Nityananda first. Because their names are called first, because without their mercy, without Krishna's magnanimous mercy, where the rules and regulations are kicked out, without that mercy, Mahamantra won't be revealed to us. And by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, every street corner, every pavement, every footpath, every road, every park, every beach can become a temple. So because it's a fasting day as well, and we want to help you to be attentive, I want to give you more space and time to bring your thoughts, your questions, your realizations, maybe your pastimes, to honor Lord Chaitanya today. So please, I'm going to hand over the floor to all of you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, CITI-SAKTI Devi.
Thank you.
For sharing this wealth of love with us today. And just as our revered speaker said, devotees, if anyone may want to share some reflections, understanding about this most magnificent form of the Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you may indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to speak, to share. And in case anyone may have questions, that is also allowed. Shri Sarvatma Prabhu, please, you may unmute. Thank you for being here, Sarvatma Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you for being here, Prabhu.
Yes.
My pleasure. Thank you for showing up.
My basis is Hare Krishna.
Likewise. Yeah, I always have a few things for you to toss around and, re-deliver, re-gift. One thing about the verse that you quoted from the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, to Shri Krishna, in the purport in particular, it's explained that there is no need for expensive sacrifices and mosques and church. People don't don't dig that anymore, so they just chant the one name. So why the expense of a Vedic planetarium?
Mm.
If it's just to chant Hare Krishna, we can build a large pandal and just chant.
Mhm.
That's my first one. Go ahead.
Okay. It is a very good question. It's an important question, and I'm sure you're not the only person who's asked that. Every time there's a big expense in the movement anywhere, people start to ask why. Our process is so simple. It goes back to what Srila Prabhupada explains, that Lord Chaitanya's teachings actually are postgraduate teachings when it comes to spiritual life. And they start at the point of surrendering to Krishna. So because of this, you're going to find, and I'm sure you've seen this yourself, that most people are not ready from the beginning to surrender to Krishna. They're ready to surrender to their idea of spiritual life, being a good person, being a spiritual person, wanting a better life here. And there's a lot of people who follow Krishna consciousness because they like the idea of being a devotee more than being a devotee. And all of us are, amongst us, we've all been there, or some of us maybe are still there. I speak for myself as well. I'm sure I'm mixed on many levels. So there's two reasons. There's lots of reasons, but two things I want to draw out in terms of why we continue to make temples, why Prabhupada, established the culture of temples and deity worship and all of these things. It's, facilities to enable us to do all 9 processes of devotional service, hearing, chanting, remembering, deity worship, following the instructions of serving the lotus feet, all of these, Atma Nivedanam, full surrender, friendship. Why has he given us all these temples? First of all, to enable us to do all the processes, because we don't start off at the point of being ready to surrender to Krishna. So these facilities help people to access devotional service at various points, but through also various processes based on what's appealing to them. They also engage many people in offering, as Rupa Goswami says, cultivate the ambition to serve Krishna with everything you have, which means our abilities in this world, whether that's financial ability, physical strength, creativity, the power of speech, intellect, whatever it is, that it gives us an opportunity to serve in this world. So we build these temples and have these huge expenses as another way to offer ourselves, but also to create facility to have many ways to approach the 9 processes of devotional service. Because very few people are at the point of surrender to Krishna where they are satisfied simply chanting. We look back on our own journeys, and I remember the first taking up the bead bag when I was 18 years old and chanting Hare Krishna. It was hard work. Chanting for 7.5 minutes was hard work. It was laborious. I remember sitting in my bedroom one day at night time, not even in the morning, sitting with my bead bag, chanting Hare Krishna. And actually, I still remember that moment thinking, this is really hard to sit in one place to chant. This is meant to give me the highest pleasure. I really want this. I want the result. But just to do one round is so hard. And then, when I'd gone up to 16 rounds, I remember sitting there once going, 16 rounds rolls off my tongue. I remember that day when I couldn't chant even one round. So if I didn't have devotee association, a place to congregate with devotees, a temple where I could worship the deity, a temple where I could get involved in projects and lend a hand, where I could hear from others, I think it would have been very difficult on my own for me to go from that one difficult round, chanting it in the dark in the evening, to getting to a point where one day where 16 rounds was like, okay, now 16 rounds rolls off my tongue to a point where I actually like chanting more, so they're necessary for us. They're necessary because although we're being given the highest thing freely, we don't recognize it.
Okay. But there's
yes, as you're okay already said, I don't buy that.
No, I do. I'll buy some of it.
Okay.
But why to do it in, I don't know how to call it, maybe excessive way to spend millions and millions of dollars. I know it is meant to attract certain types of people that they will see these as a major accomplishment or a source of pride for the devotees to show off, look at what we have. We have beaten the Vatican, and now our building is bigger, much bigger than St. Peter's. But I'm thinking, okay, but within the temple, if you observe the amount of space given for making garlands and sewing outfits, as opposed to rooms where there's education, how to propagate, how to teach people to understand Lord Chaitanya, to chant Hare Krishna, is quite disproportionate. So this is the issue, not that, why not? I mean, if we have the money and, use it properly, fine, make it, and also it is a house. Prabhupada wanted to build a house in which the whole world can live. We did build a house, but not everybody can fit, and we don't accept everybody. We just accept certain people who have a certain standard, that have to follow certain principles, and the rest, just let them fend for themselves. Anyway, that was my post comment to your.
But the proportion you're talking about, you're saying that there's more space for garlands than there is for education, or less space?
Oh, way more. There's for pujari purposes, there is the size room, the size of a football.
Okay.
Where for education, there is 1 or 2 rooms, with a few books here and there, and I'm not sure there's people assigned to, how many high schools we have. Like, for example, 40 years ago, I was buying papaya outside of Mayapur and, outside the front wall, when there was just, the long building, and that was in the front, in the big wall. And I was talking to the boy that was selling papaya, and I was thinking, oh, with my twisted mentality, the poor guy is, just struggling and having to sell papayas every day in order to survive, to bring some food to the table and so on. So I asked him, do you go to school? He said, yeah, I'm enrolled in Bhaktivinoda High. So just by the fact of him saying that, I go to a high school called Bhaktivinoda Thakur High School. I thought, I'm seeing it from a wrong perspective. He's the lucky one. I am the unfortunate one to went to a school that had a name of some admiral that fought a battle in the middle of nowhere where he was eating rotten food. My vision may be distorted by my own tendencies, perhaps, but I think if we're going to teach the world about Lord Chaitanya, yes, you have to attract them first, and it's fine. Use whatever means you can. But then once you have them in, then what do? Put them to make garlands, or teach them about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and teach them how, what the Bhagavatam is all about and how to give up material desires.
You speak like a Brahmin. Not
Well,
everybody is a Brahmin. So
no, Brahmin.
no. Hear me out. First of all, I want to pick up on the word excessive. Excessive is relative. Okay. The people who are donating to projects like this, they have so much money often that they need to engage it in service. Otherwise, it'll just get engaged in Maya. So there's that side. The second, the disproportion between service areas versus education areas. Again, what proportion of space is given where? You're right. According to our Varnas, we will put more value on one area over another. I mean, I'm sure there's Vaishyas out there who think there should be more space for cottage industries where things can happen for Krishna, And equally, there's those who think there should be bigger rooms for managers and the Kshatriyas and those who are having the meetings where you're figuring out the how to do everything. And the Brahmins want more teaching space. But the thing is, as Krishna explains himself, that he cannot be understood, neither can Lord Chaitanya, by studying scripture. Yes, we have that facility available and it should be, and Prabhupada wanted it. He wanted the world to be educated in bhakti. At the same time, it is also through the simple-hearted, and primarily through the simple-hearted services like sewing and stitching and garland making or selling papaya or sweeping the floor, that really we understand Krishna, which is why Rupa Goswami says, one of the reasons why he says that we should make it our ambition to serve Krishna with everything we have. Not just, it's an and, so both things need to happen. And proportions, I think, again, it's a proportions is a relative thing. I'm not agreeing with you or disagreeing with you. I'm just saying these things, I think the externals of bhakti, because they're manifest in this externally in the material realm, will always be subjected to the reality of relativity.
I think we're just admitting or surrendering to the idea that everybody's a Sudra in this.
Look, it doesn't really matter what Varna we are. Who cares at the end of the day? What we want to do is we want to be able to surrender and love Krishna and be of service to the Vaishnavas, to Guru, to Krishna. He doesn't really care what ashram we're in. He doesn't care what Varna we're in. He doesn't care about any of those things. The point is, you remember him at the end.
Granted, I'm just yeah, I'm just thinking this, okay, I hope your plan works, because as in it doesn't seem to work in a smaller scale. So maybe in a grander scale it will work. And also the idea that Krishnadas Kaviraj said that all these things that he's discussing in the Chaitanya Charitamrita are highly esoteric and forbidden, basically, for the general populace, that shouldn't be spoken. Yet they need to hear it anyway. So he will take the risk and say them. So my segue here is, okay, when is this come in? When, at what time, how many garlands do you have to make until you hear about Chaitanya Lila?
I mean, Prabhupada says we just study systematically, ideally Bhagavad Gita, then Srimad Bhagavatam, then Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? Because by then, at least sufficiently one has an ambition to serve Krishna with everything they have. We don't have to wait to be pure. But this is the thing. It's, I was also even just thinking about the Vedic planetarium, the temples, etc., the process, the most confidential. If I look at medicine, when somebody needs the most powerful medicine and they can't afford it, nor can they understand it, nor would they find it palatable, we give it to them out of kindness and compassion. And we often give it to them with a sugar coating, something that's palatable to them, because they don't like the taste of the medicine and they certainly don't understand its power. So even what appears to not be working on a smaller scale is probably working. We just don't have the ability to see it. And so we judge things based on our inability. But we can go around this topic and we're not going to come to a hard and fast conclusion.
Oh, I'm on your side. I'm cheering for you.
Thank you.
Die.
That's a great blessing. I feel like I have a million armies now that have you on my side.
As they say in Portuguese, Deus te ouça, which means may God hear you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Sarvatma Prabhu and CITI-SAKTI. Thank you so much for your responses. In Gideon Agri here, we do bi-weekly studies of Sri Prabhupada and Lamrita. And I very well remember where we read from Sri Prabhupada and Lamrita. And I had read Sri Prabhupada and Lamrita before, but I was pleasantly surprised how Sri Prabhupada gave a very vivid, illustrative way he wanted the temple of the Vedic planetarium built. And Sri Prabhupada explained in that pursuit of this planetarium building that left to us as Vaishnava devotees, we do not care, we can sit under a tree and chant and serve the Lord. But we are preaching movement. If we're sitting under a tree, who will come to join us? And on top of that, Sri Prabhupada also wanted to show to the whole world the depth of information we have in our books. So it's very interesting. Savatma Prabhu, who posed the question, also accepts the responses given. But I think his major concern was how much certain things are given so much attention to as compared to something else. And so, which is very interesting. But I hope and I believe that we are all hoping and praying, doing everything we can to make sure that this Srila Prabhupada's vision of this planetarium building comes into fruition. Harichakra Prabhu, please you may unmute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you very much, CITI-SAKTI Prabhu.
Obeisances.
Just a follow-up of the questions Savatma Prabhu was asking. This is my personal observation, and I guess, well, maybe you can give some input. Like the question Savatma Prabhu was asking. When we devote more time in building the ritualistic aspect of devotional service, and don't put more emphasis on the education part. Personally, what I realize is that it gives room for people to deviate completely from the actual goal of devotional service. And particularly, well, I know it's happening throughout the world, but particularly in Africa, specifically in West Africa, you see a lot of people are so inclined to perform yagyas and all the rituals and involving all the tantras and all these things. Give some talisman to somebody, give some ring to somebody. We are so much tilted towards that direction than the actual philosophy. And because of that, we are losing a lot of people. And even new people who come in doesn't really know. They all come for the mystical aspect of everything. So what input do you give about that? Because I think I personally know in the initial stages when we joined this movement, there were some Bhakta programs that you will rigorously go through that Bhakta program. So I said it like in 6 months or 1 year, you are so fixed in the understanding of the philosophy that your chances of deviating becomes very slim.
Yeah.
But of late, see, so I think I'm also in that line that more attention should be focused also on the education part.
Mm-hmm.
And because if we have schools to teach, if we have all this, and then it will bring people the awareness of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. What do you think?
I agree with you. Now, I just want to expand a little bit by what I mean by I agree with you. Look, every aspect of Krishna consciousness can unfortunately become ritualistic. Even studying the Shastra can become ritualistic. What do we mean? That means the heart's been taken out of it and we're more attached to some secondary gain, right? What I agree with you on is that we do have not a lacking of facility to become well-versed, not just in the knowledge of Krishna consciousness, but in developing that ambition to surrender to Krishna and Guru. We don't have a lacking in facility for that. What I have noticed is we have a lacking in encouragement to give people permission that it's not just a good idea, but it's recommended and essential to take some time out as early as possible in your bhakti journey to be systematically trained in Krishna consciousness, either under the shelter of a temple, directly under the shelter of the spiritual master, or a shiksha guru, or some process where the focus is that your foundation is so strong that then when you go off into various projects or preaching activities, you don't lose the heart of why you're doing what you're doing. Unfortunately, and this is a symptom of the vast majority of things being run by kanishtas, is that everything becomes results and project orientated. And you end up with more projects than people. Because people can say it's about projects and people, but a lot of people prefer to invest in the project than the people, because people are hard work. It requires us to actually give something from the heart to look after people. It's not just a financial thing or an energy thing or a time thing. It requires us to swallow our pride. It requires us to do the subtle cleaning. So I wholeheartedly agree with you that systematic training early on the externals and internals of bhakti is essential for our own spiritual success and the health of our movement and for the success of projects and everybody we meet. And it also minimizes people getting distracted by their own agendas and mixed devotional service. But we do need to boost that permission there's a reason why Srila Prabhupada, in the early days, you were only a devotee if you lived in the temple, right? I remember when I joined in the 90s, you didn't have to live in the temple to be considered a devotee, but if you were living outside, you were expected to follow the same standards someone would follow in the temple. You were expected to dress like that, speak like that, serve like that. In opening the house so that anyone can live here, we say, fine, you can start anywhere. But we forget to tell people that they are starting. And actually, you have permission and you are encouraged to systematically be trained so that your life outside of the temple is as high quality or as good quality or as devotional as a full-time monk in the temple. And it is possible if you have that training early. That permission needs to be there, that encouragement needs to be there, because it is necessary. Because if Prabhupada was physically present, he would want every devotee who comes, who has any interest, to take time out to get fully trained up, so that they're less likely to be swayed by the mystical side or the ritualistic side or just the dry learning of scripture, or having big projects which one can delude themselves belongs to them. Does that make sense? Sorry if my answer was long, but.
Well,
yeah. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, CITI-SAKTI and Harichakra Prabhu, for your input. I do not know myself, and therefore I do not know about anyone else. But I do not know whatever I did or whoever was in charge. Of course, I can assume that it's by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, and probably my stars, my karma, whatever, But to be exposed to Lord Chaitanya in this particular lifetime is a gift. I do not understand how I got it. For others, I do not know. Like I said, others probably it's something they've been doing, so it's nothing new to them. But I have a question about mindset and condition. Because you rightly said that Lord Chaitanya is such a personality, an individual that is the most precious thing. And when you have the most precious thing, our mindset tells us that something that is so precious is also very costly. And here we are, it's being given freely. And because of our conditioning that nothing so expensive, nothing so precious is given free of charge, most of us do not accept this personality, Lord Chaitanya. Somehow, some of us are lucky we've accepted him, even though we're struggling, but the fact is we've accepted him. Now, how do we try in our little attempt to sharing this love of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with the world, help those whose mindset and conditioning make it so difficult for them to accept this personality of Godhead, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? How do we try to help these people? And it's not like they just don't want to, but it's the way their mindset is and it's the way they are conditioned. My tongue is conditioned in a certain way. So a certain type of food that is so tasty in certain traditions, when I put them on my tongue, I'll spit them out. It's due to my conditioning. So how do we help these people with different mindset and conditioning to accept Lord Chaitanya? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You know, even though it's against the material grain to give the highest thing at no cost, we have some glimmers of it. Who gives their valuable jewels away for free? Loving parents to their children. Why? Because they love them, right? This is why Lord Chaitanya gives us Prema Bhakti for free, because actually, ultimately, Krishna loves us. He's not looking really for anything other than that love, experiencing it in a two-way dynamic. Sometimes the best thing we can do for another person to show them that what they're being given is coming from a loving place is patience. Because sometimes children won't even receive the love of their parents because of their conditioning. Even when it's not conditioning or damage caused by their own parents, it's maybe caused by somebody else, they mistrust their parents. What does a loving parent do? What does love do? Love brings patience. We're often in such a rush to see people accept because our own aggrandizement and our own sense of accomplishment is tied into it. We don't stick around long enough to allow them to let their guard down and accept it. When Srila Prabhupada was asked how he went from having hardly any money in a bag of grains to having a multi-million-pound organization with hundreds of temples and thousands of disciples, he was asked this by a business magazine. They were expecting some big master plan. You know what he said? That I went one person at a time. He had the patience to wait till each individual was ready to receive unconditional love and take that first step in receiving it before he moved on to the next. So what attitude should we have when we're preaching, knowing that people are conditioned to question, why on earth are you giving me something that is so amazing for free? Either it's not that amazing or you want something from me. You're out to cheat me. How do you stay with? How do you persuade the person? Patience. Patience. Works every time. And when we care, we're patient. It's just one attitude. There's so many different ways to do it.
Thank you, patience. This patience sometimes is such an expensive gem because sometimes there are certain situations you would want, you would like to see happen right there and then, but you still have to develop patience.
Because the material world tells us everything's urgent.
Yeah.
Right around us, we're taught to live with a sense of urgency. Look busy. If you look busy, you're more important.
Yeah.
You know, what a load of rubbish. It's actually a load of rubbish, because the busiest person, if you look busy and look important, you're basically also telling people, I haven't got time for you.
Mm.
Nobody stays with anybody who hasn't got time for them. Nobody. Why did people stay with Srila Prabhupada? He made time for them. Even if they had, you watch Prabhupada memories. Often people's memories, they're moved to tears. And they're talking about some tiny, small interaction they had with Srila Prabhupada. But in that one moment, he invested all of his love. You haven't even done anything to serve me yet, but here, have all of my love. I'm going to give it all to you in 1 second. Have it. And I have so much more to give you. So, yes, we are going against the grain in Kali Yuga by trying to bring love, a spiritual force, in a lust-filled world. You know, lust asks, what about me? It's the voice of the victim. Love always asks, what about you? So, yeah, patience. It's one thing that I find helpful with everything. If I'm finding that I'm stuck somewhere, whether it's with someone else's receptivity, with my own receptivity, with anything, it's like, stop, breathe, be patient. Krishna is time. Go according to his time. Let him lead the way. You just act, you know? After our questions are done, there's one thing I want to share from a previous conversation we had on this forum, just for clarification, because I came across something in Bhagavatam recently. But once the questions are finished, I don't know if there are any more questions. If there's
Can
Okay, go ahead. No problem.
I would like to, I don't want to be contrary, but
You love it. You love being contrary. What are you talking about?
I admit it. Guilty.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm not foreign nor enemy to confrontation at all. I very much thrive on it. Yet, I just want to give you an example of how you could be wrong as far as the patience, at least in according to time and circumstance. I was a brahmachari, probably I would say 1989, 88, 89, and I was setting up a table with books, and I will always make a tray of something, you know. And in America, round things are not popular. Square things are. So I had to make a tray of something. I couldn't just roll balls and a tray. And I tried to give him a incentive for people to come, and you know, and I was making healthy sweets even then, that they were tasty. You know, I had training as a chef, so nobody will even look at them, whether they were round or square. So I started charging, even though it wasn't my intention. I charged absurdly low. I charged 25 cents for a square for a sweet, and then they were all gone, because you know that broke their skepticism. That to say, if it is free, it must be garbage. So I'm not gonna do it. But if I have to pay for it, okay, now it must be something important. I'm not sure this is true anywhere else. I'm sure in Africa or India or other places, you know, in South America where I lived for a while, you know, if you give stuff for free, people will take it. They won't suspect that you're trying to take advantage of them. So sometimes the message of Lord Chaitanya of free love of God, no interest, no agenda, may work better where people are more pious and less skeptical. And as far as the ingredient of patience, or the ingredient or the major ingredient of love. Yeah, that's a tough one, because it's something that we don't often have to give, or at least it's hard to uncover it, unpack it in a way that is acceptable and doesn't seem contrived. So tell me how to go about it. How to, like, for example, I give you a small example of my own insignificant life. Just very recently, I try not to make the offering. I cook, but I hope that my wife or someone else can offer it, because I don't really feel qualified. And and I discovered recently that it's because I don't have love. When I offer it, I offer it as it's something that I need to do, and something that, okay, maybe Krishna wants what I cooked. I definitely want it because I'm hungry, or I could be hungry. I need to nourish myself, so I make the offering. But there's no real love going into it. So how can you teach others about something when you really don't have it? I cannot give an example. And I totally agree with your assessment about education. I wasn't trying to tell people that they should learn all the verses and spew them out like it was a leaf blower. The idea is to be trained, to be actually capable and vibrant and merciful and all the things. So anyway, I threw way too much to you, but I'm sure you.
That's right. So first of all, I'd say you haven't defeated me on the patience point. The reason I'm saying that is because what I was saying to Sahadev Prabhu is about patience in terms of people receiving love of God. If the way we're delivering that we need to put a charge, we put a charge. But you're still being patient. You weren't waiting there going, hang on, I'm in an urgent need to see you accept love of God. You wanted them to accept the medium through which you were giving it, but not an attachment to, right, you've got to now be dancing in ecstasy because you've had one of my squares. So, because even Prabhupada, he very intelligent man, he understood that in different cultures, people value things differently. And even with books, he said, don't give the books for free. Make sure people give something, because people don't value things they're given for free. He understood this is material conditioning, and we don't want people to lose the opportunity to connect with bhakti because they don't recognize what they're being given. So I don't think that's I don't think what you did was a sign of impatience. It was just a sign of intelligence. What I was explaining to Sahadev was more about this patience, about when someone doesn't recognize what they're being given. And that's not just always at the first point of contact. It often happens afterwards. Actually, it's more likely to happen as we take to the process. We don't really accept what we've been given. What we're accepting is a lot of the superficial things. Oh, I've got a nice community and nice prasad, and now a nice identity in this material world where I can feel good about myself, about being a nice spiritual religious person and having the highest goal. But actually accepting Lord Chaitanya's mercy, really accepting that I'm being given the highest thing for free. Because if I accept that I'm being given the highest thing for free, that means I'm actually accepting that I'm unqualified to receive it, which we don't like accepting. That's why we spend so long trying to figure out why we've been given the mercy and what did I do, because we like to have some sense of qualification. So yeah, what was your last point?
You're talking to a very senior citizen, so you can ask me
You
that.
forgot. Does anybody remember something from his last point?
Well, I mentioned about skepticism as a tool, and
yeah, but that's the thing. People are skeptical because of their conditioning, and skepticism just means you value things in a different way. It's like certain environments. It's really funny. I say this to people often, that I've got certain environments where I will give Krishna consciousness and people will happily take it for free. They want it. They're hungry. They have an appetite for it. They know they're hungry. They know they're being fed. They want it. Other environments, I will go give exactly the same thing, but they will only accept it if I charge them for it. Because they're still very invested in, I want I am someone, and I'm someone who wants to be present in this as being qualified to be able to receive that. And I'm going to justify my qualification by being able to afford what you're giving me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, yeah. Anyway, so that's what makes them receptive, that you're allowing me to see my qualification to receive what you're giving. I'm like, okay, be qualified, pay.
One more thing that occurred to me while you were mentioning chanting the Panchatattva mantra before the Maha Mantra. Once Harikesh, then Swami, I heard from Prabhupada. Prabhupada said the Panchatattva mantra is more powerful than the Maha Mantra. And Harikesh said, whoa, then maybe we should chant as we should chant the Panchatattva mantra. And Prabhupada said, we follow Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We hear that Guru is more merciful than Krishna. We don't just sit and chant our Guru's name, do we? We follow what the Guru does. The Guru tells us chant Hare Krishna. Yeah. Just because the doorway is the entrance, the door gives us the entrance somewhere, doesn't mean we hang about at the door. We go where the door leads to. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you so much. Well, dear devotees, by the divine mercy of my Gurudev, he named me Sahadev. And therefore, I have 4 other strong siblings. And today I prayed to Bhima not to stay very close to me because I have to fast. I have to fast, and Bhima does not like fasting. And if he stays very close to me, it may be very difficult. And somehow, by Guru's grace, Shri Bhima Dev listened, and he hasn't stayed close to me. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Good. We've got about an hour to go here.
Yeah.
So I think you're coming. Can I share my thing that I wanted to share? Was a few sessions, a few classes ago, we came up. There was this debate about Lord Brahma and the quote that everybody who goes to Brahma's planet goes back to Godhead. So I found the exact verse and the purport to that.
Yeah, please share.
It's actually there in the 6th canto. It's in the 1st chapter. It comes up when it talks about the life of Ajamil. And actually the verse says that those who are on Lord Brahma's planet, on Brahmalok, at the time of dissolution, all go back to Godhead. Now, Brahma lives for a really, really long time. So your chances of taking birth at the time that he leaves his body, after he's lived for 100 years, is a really, really long time. It's not going to be every person who takes. So I think the question that came up is that, somebody had said, everybody who takes birth on Brahmalok goes back to Godhead. But that's not what the verse says. The verse actually says that it's at the time of dissolution. So when Brahma leaves his body, if you happen to be on his, not happen to be, but by your spiritual advancement, you've taken birth on Brahma's planet at the time that he's leaving his body in that last era, then when he goes back, you go back. And I was just thinking, one of the reasons that makes a lot of sense is by the time Brahma is leaving his body, he's ready to go back to Godhead. So he's only going to be surrounded by people who are of similar consciousness.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this.
I just thought I'd share it because there was such a debate that you were sending verses afterwards as well, from different places. And we talked about, different Brahmas, rule differently. They're of different consciousnesses. So which Brahmalok is this talking about? But it was just interesting when this came up. I thought, it makes sense that those who are there when he leaves and he's ready to go back to God, and they're also ready. Because, Gurudev also, he shares that look around you. The people who are close to you, because these may very well be the people you leave your body with. So keep your relationships healthy. So I know it's completely nothing to do with today's session, but I was like, I want to mention it while those people who are part of that debate are here.
Well, that is a very interesting subject matter, because one other part to what you just shared In fact, I don't have my tablet here with me, but I have it saved. In fact, I looked at it just yesterday, but I have a very porous brain. I don't remember. But Srila Prabhupada states in the purport that, of course, Lord Brahma at the end of his life goes back to the spiritual world. But it does not always happen that way.
No.
Because sometimes some Brahmins do not perform devotional service to a point that they can go back home. And therefore, instead of going back home, they actually get brought down from their higher level to lower level. And in fact, Srila Prabhupada also stated, quoting from scriptures, that each and every living entity
First birth is Brahma.
first appears as Lord Brahma.
Yes.
So if we are all here, it means that we did not go back home at some point.
We didn't. We didn't. So,
Yeah.
so it makes sense.
So
Yeah.
it's very interesting. Sometimes some of us think that if we become this, then we can become wonderful devotees. But no situation gives us
Guarantee.
assurance,
Yes.
except we decide to surrender to Guru and Krishna. But those in, I don't know about other parts of the world, but those of us on the eastern coast of US, moonrise is 6:49. So let's make it roughly, say, 7 p.m. That's our moonrise. Lord Chaitanya is so merciful upon us. The moonrise is coming quite early this time. And also, I was sharing about how Srila Prabhupada himself gave very, very vivid descriptive plan for the Vedic planetarium. Is in the Srila Prabhupada LILA. This is volume 2, chapter 37, The Land is Yours. It's, when we read it, I was so shocked, I was surprised, of course, pleasantly surprised. Srila Prabhupada gave every bit and details of how the temple should be constructed. So, but CITI-SAKTI, as always, we love you and we thank you so much for being here with us at least once in a month, sharing your love and wisdom with us. And we hope to have your association once again in the very near future. With that being said, devotees, I know devotees must be. So that's why I say my favorite festival in devotional service is Govardhan Puja. That's my favorite festival because Govardhan Puja, all you do is feast. No fasting, no austerities. No. But this is Lord Chaitanya, the most magnificent. So we're very grateful to be here to participate in his descent. And dear devotees, we're going to humbly request you all to kindly unmute, and we all chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra as taught by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to express our appreciation to our revered speaker for today, and also to be present here to share the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Mahaprabhu Mahotsava ki jai.